Give 1 or 2 more minutes to let everybody join. Thanks again, everyone, for coming along on our wild ride today. Raise your hand if you got sick at TDX last week. I'm it? Oh, good. Carl got sick too. I probably gave it to you. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
I have
He's a
learned if
giver.
you go to bed like normal people and don't go partying, you get way less sick.
Yeah, neither of those things describe me. I went to bed early and I don't party.
Oh.
But I did fly back on Wednesday night. I had to take the red eye.
It was good to see you, however, briefly.
It was a quiet Thursday, which was both fun because it gave you opportunity to do whatever you wanted, but it also meant that a lot of people were wondering where all the attendees were. So it was a weird Thursday. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'll keep an eye on the participant list as best I can. Welcome everyone to our March 15th episode of MVP Office Hours. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see all these new and returning faces in the room. I'm Squire Kirshner, one of the co-hosts. Joy Shutters-Helbing and Dale Ziegler are normally here. They're both traveling today, so we're going to do our best to support everyone who joined today. Reminder, it's the first and third Friday of every month. Our next one will be the 5th of April. If you want to get a hold of us, the best way to do that is either via LinkedIn or the email address, but maybe most importantly is use the Success Community. It is your friend, and we usually are most responsive there, as well as the rest of the room. We're all here to help each other out, and that's the best way to start those conversations. As I said, it's the next meeting is the 5th. Just a reminder, we're all here to help each other out. We're all here to share our experience and our insights and our knowledge. We're all MVPs. Just by being here, you are an MVP, whether you've got the piece of paper or not. Post any links you need to in the chat. If you've got questions, you've got answers, you've got recommendations, the chat is wide open. We usually put as much of that as we can back into the meeting details. And if you've got a question, feel free to post it there, but you can also raise your hand if you want to wait your turn. And when it comes to you sharing your question, feel free to share your screen, but please, please, please remember, we're recording. You saw that little pop-up happen when we started. Don't share production if you can help it. Don't show customer or PII data if you can help it, because the internet's forever. And most importantly of all, we're all here to have fun. We're all here to learn. We're all here to interact, but let's stay positive and professional while we're on the call, because the internet's forever, and I'd hate for someone to be reminded of maybe something that they wish they hadn't said forever. So with that, my websites were working. Quick review of the upcoming events that I'm aware of. Please jump in if you've got anything. MC2 is coming up the end of the month in Delhi, Dream Olay in Spain, Albania Dreaming in Tirana, and We Dreaming is in April 9th, as I was just reminded. Mid-Atlantic Dreaming is right around the corner in May. A couple world tour events coming up soon, and I know Connections is in May as well, I believe. Stu's got his hand up. Let's hear it, Stu.
Yeah, Squire, just post in the chat here. The call for speakers for Forcelandia is open, but only for a few more days, because I think that the call for speakers ends on Sunday. So get your sessions in there. And then you may have heard of a little thing called Midwest Dreamin'. A little thing, it's happening in my backyard, Minneapolis, Minnesota this summer. And call for speakers is open. Please submit a session, because I want to see all of your lovely faces right here in the Twin Cities, and I will I'll take you out for a coffee or a beer or a water or whatever you want. Maybe I'll take a little tour. There's a park right next to the hotel that you can see the Cherry Spoon from there and everything. So maybe I'll take a little walking tour with whoever wants to go.
Are you sharing the week with Witness Success again as well?
Witness Success is in a different city this year. So
in Louisville.
Louisville.
All right.
And I've already seen some advertisements coming. It looks like that is going to be a wonderful, wonderful event.
Awesome.
So yes, lots of things to happen.
Thanks, Stu. Anyone else want to offer anything that we missed, or I should say I missed this week, putting this together? All right. And with that, let's jump right into the couple questions that
I can-
came up.
Sorry,
Oh, sure.
I
ahead.
can offer a couple. Hello.
Yeah.
New MVP here. Class of 2024. Architect Dreaming call for facilitators is closed, but that's happening in Berlin on the 27th and 28th of May. And London's call for speakers ends March 19th, so not far away.
Thank you very much.
And that event's happening in July.
I think just quick call out because with those two little bits of or three actually updates, it's also important if you have heard someone speak on a topic that you think is really valuable and want the world to be able to witness, recommend these opportunities to that person. It doesn't have to be someone in the, it could be someone you're in your user groups with or what have you. And any opportunity to speak is a great opportunity to speak. So share this with your teams. All right, couple short items, I believe, from the office hours success group that I think we could touch on pretty quickly. Pat had asked in the success group, because we brought it up, where you can quickly find the order of execution documentation that we were talking about. It's always available on the Well Architected website, and I'm gonna quickly show it to you here. It's in the architecture basics section. In database manipulation, it covers everything in a pretty nice graphical representation. It's also covered in significant detail in the Apex Developer Guide and Triggers and Order of Execution. Gives you all of the difficult to read detail. So both of those are available to you at your leisure. If you want to have a reason to get to sleep at night, great reading. So. And then Mary Lynn had asked about a question about float update caseworks when the case manually created but not created from email to case. I'm just going to open this up because it covers it in a little bit more detail. There were a couple responses, or sorry, just one response to the community feed that talks about why it doesn't work. If you've got some feedback, it doesn't look like Mary Lynn is here today. But if you'd like to give some help via success, please jump over to MVP Office Hours Success Group and add any details you think are necessary. I think this link is the one everybody ends up at, but feel free to share. And that is everything that we had in success. So the floor is open to anyone who has a question or a topic they want to talk about, or anything. The world's our oyster.
Oh, hey, Square, it's Jennifer. I actually must have posted in the wrong place because I thought I asked a question, and I think.
Why don't we go ahead and just assume that I didn't see it and give me, let's hear it and we'll work through it.
Sure. I guess it went to MVP Office Hours and default opportunity teams, like in the hashtags. So maybe that's where it ended up. In any event, we've been struggling for a while. We have a pre-sales organization, and they have a key role that they add their users to the default opportunity team called pre-sales primary assigned. And the default opportunity teams, hundreds of sales reps have their designated pre-sales person with that opportunity team role in their default opportunity team. No problem. Every time an opportunity gets transferred to them or opened, that pre-sales person gets added to the op team as pre-sales primary assigned. But because opportunity team reporting is not great, let's just say, the pre-sales team asked us to add a field to the opportunity page for pre-sales primary assigned, with the complete plan that whoever was assigned that role in the opportunity team, that name would populate on the opportunity, and then they could get robust reporting and dashboards. The challenge is that if I manually add someone to an opportunity team with that role, that field populates no problem. But for some reason, we cannot get a field populate from a default opportunity team. So that is our technical issue. And it's a flow that we're using on the page to get that name populated. And we have an Apex trigger to make sure there can only be one pre-sales primary assigned for any default or for any team member role per opportunity.
And you said it was an Apex trigger?
Yeah, although
Okay.
I'm, my role is sort of the business side, so I'm not your technical expert. I know enough to be a little bit dangerous. And I did want to start my comment with this group helped me so much twice in the last 6 months and really has helped to influence our development on the IT side. So I want to thank everybody that's contributed to that. I really appreciate it.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. And that's really why we do it. So thank you for that feedback. That means a lot to us.
Thank you.
All right. So to paraphrase, the question is, the Apex trigger, when you add a manual opportunity team member, will assign the appropriate name to the field on the opportunity. But when you add the
Yeah.
default opportunity team, it doesn't know or doesn't trigger at all or doesn't.
It doesn't work
okay.
at all. And the
Okay.
vast majority of pre-sales people are added to opportunity teams by default
Yeah.
teams.
Perfect. All right.
Default account and opportunity teams both
Well,
bypass all of the
yeah.
automations that happen, unfortunately. That is longstanding and sad behavior.
Yes. Is
Who
there
made
any
that
workaround
decision?
that? Oh, sorry.
Who made that decision? We need to go frown at somebody.
Surely they're gone by now. Like, I hope they're gone by now.
I would assume it has something to do with you need to know the team before the opportunity is saved so it can do the sharing appropriately as the opportunity is committed. Whether or not that's appropriate is a different question entirely, but I bet you that's probably the timing that they envisioned 25 years ago.
Hmm.
So
So
the actual access is there because they're added on the default team. It's just that your field isn't being completed. Could you move it to something scheduled so that it's going to look for ones with blank fields on the op and then going to find the existing opportunity team that we know is the default?
You could,
That's a
so
nice
long
thing.
as it runs off the opportunity, right? Because you can't rely on any automations at the team level coming through with a default as your entry point. So as long as if you had like a 5-minute delayed thing or 30-second or whatever delayed thing on the opportunity that went down and looked for the default opportunity team member and then copied that value up, that would probably work.
Oh, you're thinking record triggered with delay. I was thinking every hour go find if there's any that are
Sure.
missing or something. I eat 6 of one.
Yeah, I don't
either
think
way.
IT would agree to every hour just because of all the other things. It's a pretty big, robust enterprise sales force, but I love your idea. So Matthew or Christy, like, what would I tell IT? Maybe we run a weekly pre-sales primary assign. If that field is blank, look to the opportunity team. I don't know the technical, like, is that a trigger or what that is?
Yeah, it could be a trigger, it could be a flow. If you do it in a scheduled job, I could be a scheduled Apex job. I don't know if you can you do like weekly scheduled flows?
Sure.
I don't know that. Okay, great.
Scheduled Apex job, looking at the field and looking at the team and then populating?
Yeah, I think I would take it. You could, like, red pill is like Christy said, you've got the scheduled sort of cron job that's just churning always and looking for outlying data. And then the blue pill is every time an opportunity goes in, wait just a few minutes and then look at that specific opportunity.
And
Oh,
I think that option, I feel like you mentioned if you put someone in manually, it works. Like, to me, that
Yeah.
option covers both bases. It's not just addressing the default issue. It's just saying instead of populating it immediately, wait, it just depends on when, assuming there's an opportunity team, right? Like, if you had a scheduled job, it's looking for any opportunity where that field is blank or, however you limit it.
yes.
But I don't think that you would necessarily need to be prescriptive about whether it's flow or Apex. It just needs to align with whatever else you've got firing already.
Okay, yeah, and I like the idea of like 5 minutes after an opportunity is created, so it's not constantly going all day, but it doesn't have to wait for a week. That would be great.
I
Okay.
do
This is
have,
specifically on opportunity created, right?
Yeah, so yeah, it's like we're talking like 250 sales reps regularly. They all have default pre-sales people, and the poor pre-sales team, they're literally removing them from the team because of the default thing and adding them back in just to get this field to populate.
Right, but we're only worried about doing this on Opportunity Create.
Sure.
Wait a minute, what if the territories
That
change
they
for
should
someone?
change, yeah.
Well, the pre-sales person stays with the rep. So I don't know that, I think we can handle those outliers of, maybe another rep taking over. I promise you, their pre-sales person will be all over changing it to them, because this is how they comp these people. This is how they determine who goes to our club, if you will, at the end of the year, things like that.
I would absolutely do an async path on a record triggered flow on Opportunity Create if that's the only time you need to do this.
So async path, can you say that one more time? That sounded very.
So if you do a record triggered flow in the after save context, so the record saves to Salesforce, and then you kick off a flow, you can add an asynchronous path that basically lets that save transaction complete and then opens a new transaction to do something else. And on that asynchronous path, you'd be able to reference that new opportunity you just created, go look at the team, find the right team member, and populate the field.
That's awesome. Squire, will I be able to get a copy of this so I can write down everything everyone said?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm starting this, just a side note, starting this month. In the past, we've published the slide decks to the success group. They're not really very easy to figure out what you're looking for. So we're going to start posting the full summary of the meeting after each meeting in the success flow as like a meeting notes kind of post. So you'll see it probably by the end of the day, or if not by Monday.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Michelle, and everyone who's weighed in on this. So it sounds like it's possible. I am so pleased, because
Yeah.
pre-sales is really upset about this, and IT's like, yeah, it's a Salesforce limitation, and we need help to figure out. So that's great.
What were the limitations that you were experiencing on reporting?
Well, opportunity teams reporting is terrible, and maybe we're behind the times in knowing that there is robust reporting for opportunities with teams, but we just it's just very limited where we are.
Susan, do you want to peel into that a little bit more? Are you good with that?
Yeah, I was just kind of hoping to get a little bit more like, what kind of report are you trying to create that you're not able to create?
Pre-sales, primary assigned activity management, closed won opportunities where pre-sales has demoed certain products. So it's multiple. We have a custom pre-sales event record type for how they log all their demos and activities, and we have these special products attached to that. So they just don't use it. They just use regular opportunity reporting with activities.
Okay,
And stuff.
so it's more some of the other objects that are related to the opportunity that you're struggling to get.
Yes, so because Teams is, I maybe, and again, we may be very behind the times in how we use that. So, but it's a lot of activity reporting with opportunities and closed won opportunities at that. So that's why we put it on the page, to make it a lot easier. But then we ran into this huge issue, and more, we have 700 sales reps. So more and more reps are using default opportunity teams. So this has become a huge issue.
Yeah. My gut is that when you're talking about the challenges, a normal day-to-day user probably doesn't understand how to use a cross filter to kind of get to the short list of what you're trying to accomplish. And so it makes more sense to raise that data point up to the opportunity level so everyone can figure it out.
Yes. Yeah, because we all just have this opinion that opportunity teams reporting is poor and weak and light.
Yeah.
And again, sounds like Susan's probably like, well, if you just do these 5 things, we could probably get to where we need. So I appreciate, I'm going to dig into that a bit more, but that's awesome. Thank you all very much. I don't want to take over the whole time, so.
No problem at all.
There is one thing that I'll say that has helped me in my history, and that is the Salesforce help area and the word considerations for, because with the problem that you had, the question that comes up is, well, why does Salesforce do it like that? Like, why can't I just have a default opportunity team that triggers automation. I don't understand why. So during those instances, I'll go out to help and I'll search for considerations for account teams or for opportunity teams or whatever the thing is that I'm struggling with.
Mhm.
And normally Salesforce will have a page that doesn't tell you the why they built it like that, but it will give you the here's the areas you're going to struggle with, and it'll tell you line by line of don't use it in this pattern, don't do this way, don't do that way, and you may have to dig really deep to find out the why, and you may never find it.
Mhm.
But I've always found that to be helpful, that if you're struggling to figure out how do I explain this to my users of why we're not able to do something, that considerations for, and then whatever the topic is, has always been helpful for me.
Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate that very much.
And Jennifer, I'm not sure if you saw it in the chat, but Michelle has offered to help out any way she can. Take her up on that. She's great.
Oh, I just did. So Michelle, how best can I connect with you? Because that's amazing. Thank you so much.
If you're on Ohana Slack, you can ping me there. Otherwise, I can actually share my email address with you, and I promise I'll actually start looking at it.
I'm not on. Oh, I don't even know what Ohana Slack. I don't even know what that's like. I know. I see your face. I'm so sorry. I guess I need to. That's why I joined these calls, to try and stay with learning and everything. So
Love it.
if you wouldn't mind sharing your email, I'll promise to email you right away. Thank you so much.
If I could offer one final thought, and I'd like to get everyone else's feedback on it too. So it sounds like you've got an Apex trigger in place to handle the new opportunity team member update to opportunity.
Yes.
If you build a flow to the other side of it, if there's a challenge there to have two kind of indistinct automations running, I don't know if you have a predisposed IT team that wants to do one thing to the other. The answer should be flow, but if it's not, there's probably something in the midst of that trigger it's triggering on opportunity team creation to go do the update. You probably need to have your developer assess opportunity teams, or if an opportunity itself is created, and work the other direction, like handle both triggering events in the same Apex context. We'd all rather you use flow.
Okay.
But not everyone gets to do that. So I just wanted to suggest that if anybody's got some feedback there, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I just love this group. You've helped me so much, and we've implemented a lot of things based on recommendations here. So we will do what is recommended. That's awesome. Thank you.
You bet. All right. I may have missed anything in the chat, but did anybody else have a question or a topic they wanted to bring up?
For the sake of discussion,
Awesome.
two things. The future words, user management future, the stuff that they talked about at TDX where they're changing the setup. And then also would like to add a cool little layer there to that. The discussion, the throwdown between Squire and Mike Reynolds had on the Jam, which was recently released, that started here in MVP office hours. I felt like there was a lot of overlap between the two discussions, in that, moving permissions from profiles to permission set groups. You guys raised a lot of questions, those permissions get lost in these big set groups, and how do we keep track? And you were like, maybe naming conventions and stuff. But then when you look at the future of user management, a lot of those questions got answered. And I just wanted to point that out, to where they're giving you a view to see, here's all the things in all the places. And I thought it was a well-timed podcast for a well-timed release. And there's layers, and taking what we're dealing with every day and actually, doing something about it. So check out those videos on Salesforce Plus and listen to the Jam.
Jam is Joy and Mike podcast. It's their first episode, and they're really doing some cool stuff. So appreciate the shout, Katie. We had a lot
Follow-up question.
Yeah.
Does Salesforce Plus cost money like other Plus streaming services?
It does
No,
not.
it's totally free. And
Sweet.
there's actually a decent amount of TDX content that's posted that is like more technical, not like the keynotes up there true to the core, but then actual sessions. I +1 for Cheryl Feldman's session on the future of user management. There is some cool stuff coming down the pipe. But they do intros for like all the Einstein stuff they're coming out with. There are a couple other good sessions. There's one on what's coming up with flow. Michelle was in one on record triggered flow, best design patterns or best practices. I went to 2 different sessions. So moral of the story, +1 for Salesforce Plus, and it is free.
Cool. Thank you.
And I'll +1 it as well because I'm a big fan of Release Readiness Live. All of those recordings are available on Plus at your convenience. Pretty much every Salesforce event that has like not open theaters because they get to be a little bit loud are recorded. True to the Core this year was, I thought, a really insightful True to the Core, and that'll be out there. So yeah, it's a great stop. Thank you, Katie, for the link.
Squire, I can jump in with a question for collective knowledge.
Please.
So we're starting a project where I work to migrate from an old platform called Sharewell. And there are 2 different questions that we could challenge the group with. One is any wisdom on ITSM systems in Salesforce or natively connected with Salesforce. The alternative would be a conversation about doing an open CTI connector versus bring your own tech, or meaning using Service Cloud Voice. So they're 2 different things. One is an ITSM, one is a traditional call center question. So sort of a choose your adventure.
Yeah. Well, if anyone has feedback on either, pick your poison and let's hear it. Uh-oh, Willie, you stunned everyone.
So we tried to implement ITSM in Salesforce, and it's possible. But if you're really looking for some of the more advanced functionality in ITSM, especially around inventory, and not so much on the CRM and some of the knowledge, I would say go with something custom, especially if you're looking at inventory and having something that can go out and discover technology and keep up with it. The ITSM solutions out there are really powerful, and they do have integration back to Salesforce, so you don't lose what you have in Salesforce, and you can kind of have the best of both worlds. That's just my experience.
Was there?
So,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I've seen a few in the past as an architect, and back in the day, I remember there was a company called Remedy that built a product on Salesforce that they call Remedy Force. It was by BMC, I think BMC Software or something like that. Now that always had a bit of a bad reputation. Apologies to anyone who has had good experience with it, for performance and it being quite bloated and overcomplicated. But that could be one you might want to look at. These days, I tend to see, strong, scalable, and highly sort of performant solutions with the likes of ServiceNow, sometimes Jira, and I think Salesforce has what's it called? Incident management, I think it might be called, part of Service Cloud, as a native product as well, that you might want to look at too. ServiceNow has a connector with Salesforce that you can leverage in an App Exchange package as well. And other than that, I think it's got an API if you have any integration policies that say it has to go through a middleware. So there's a few different options. ServiceNow seems to be pretty dominant from an ITSM perspective these days. But there are others out there, if you know, clearly. In terms of CTI connectors, there's so many vendors out there these days from a CTI perspective. Twilio has really increased their offering. Service Cloud Voice is obviously the Salesforce one. I think it uses Amazon under the hood, and obviously Amazon Connect is one you can roll your own with, and it's got standard connectors too. So there's quite a bit, and it comes down to how much control you want over the sort of resource management that you might want to look at, and how tightly you want that pulled into your telephony system as well. So it unfortunately, as an architect, I fear pulling out the phrase "it depends."
Yeah.
Hope
no,
that helps.
Yeah. This is why I'm just bringing wisdom. Just bring the wisdom to the table, and we'll sift through it
Yep.
and figure out where we need to head.
Yeah.
John, when you let off, it felt like you had more to say, but you were kind of holding it close to the chest. What were some of the challenges you were dealing with, and why did you respond?
Well, the biggest challenge was user adoption, right? Service Cloud is, really for that customer service agent and not for the general populace. Whereas things like ServiceNow, Remedyforce to a certain extent, they're more bespoke for users of technology, right? Staff members, not customer service agents who are servicing staff members. So I just think if you go with something there that's a little bit more, built specific, it will work. Now, what we tried to do was build out Salesforce, right? And we're really not an application development house, so that wasn't the best direction for us to take off. But our leadership, they saw the investment we had in Salesforce and thought that this would be an additional way to get buy-in. The challenge is we didn't have, all 15,000 of our staff licensed in Salesforce. So they couldn't get in and check the status of tickets easily. And we didn't have, any of the web-based functionality up and running either at the time. So it's plus and minuses.
Sue?
Boy, you're gonna say no to me. I'm wondering, 35 minutes into the call, am I allowed to start a fight at MVP office hours? Because I would call out Andrew Russo here. Something John said triggered something in a previous discussion that we were in, and not in a forum that we could have a fight. Thanks, Michelle. And the fight was this, because of John said that the difference of internal help desk versus external help desk. Oh, he can't talk right now. Well, then I'm going to talk for him.
Nice.
My fight was when we were looking at some Service Cloud Trailhead items. The comment was brought up of don't intermix, don't use case record types to intermix internal case tickets, internal tickets for like ITIL, this ITSM stuff, with if you already have Service Cloud up and running for external customers. Instead, put together a whole new Service Cloud if you're going to use it for your internal ticketing system. To which I thought, what planet am I on? Yes, of course. That's what Service Cloud is for. It's, you know, you can have record types so that you could do both internal cases and external cases and have them all live in the same database. But I was shut down severely in that call, saying, nope, that's not the way you should set it up. And so I'm just wondering if I can throw that down as a possible topic for, can this group also shut me down
So
hardly and say, don't do it that way?
I feel like I started this. I'll go ahead and give you my 2 cents, Stuart. So yes, to support you, yes, you can use record types, and that is a valid solution, and I think it makes sense. But to support the other argument, when you're dealing with trying to do ITSM along with customer service, you have to also deal with the customers. And that's where a lot of complexity gets in, and trying to do both in 2 very different ways while supporting that customer model. And it's very easy for customers to bleed in, especially given the fact that if you're doing something right as a business, your employees are also customers. And so now you have this complexity of, if you try to do it with the record type, how do you identify someone who is both, right? So that's really more than just a record type, because it's not a singleton. So it gets very complex, and you get into a lot of data privacy,
Yeah.
and visibility issues.
And now that you're talking, I'm thinking about the reasons why you would split up an org to be like the customers. Are the users different?
Yes,
If
they are.
yes, is the business are the business rules different? And perhaps they are.
Right.
Are there geographic location concerns? And perhaps there are, perhaps there aren't not. So maybe it has less to do with the fact that you're using cases, and just the more about the fact of what is the business goal or the business vision that you're trying to do between these 2 concerns, and separating the concerns.
I agree. And my point was not that I couldn't blend them, because, you know, ultimately I could, and I could have developers spend a lot of time and energy making it so, but more that these companies have already gotten something that's better fit and can start to give me the employee self-service functionality that I want to offer, and that the employees want to use if they go with these tools. So finding one that lives alone, lives in its own, you know, cloud, its own database, but then has integration back to Salesforce, so you can share that information where you need to, you get the best of both.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Happy to get in the middle of a fight.
Great conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, poor Andrews. He's fighting back, Stu.
Yeah, I know he wants to talk because he and I argue all the time. That's fine.
Any other questions, topics? Do we want to circle back to this open CTI side of this then? I mean, that
Oh,
was
that's a good question, because I don't know everything.
Let's hear it, Christy.
So I have a use case where, well, there's a few various reasons, but essentially there's child accounts that have activity that need to be child accounts that are somewhat separate, but that we want activity rolled up to a central place, like a parent account. So I think we have like tasks that allow multiple contacts, but I don't know that you can set multiple accounts. I feel like I could do like a screen flow maybe on the parent to show activity from accounts that have that ID set as the parent account. I don't know if that would like run a whole lot. I'm sure there's an answer that's a custom component, but I don't have a developer, so
Are you just looking for it in a report type setting? To
not
report to?
really. I think they want to
Okay.
like, they're used to looking at the activity feed component on an account and then it's wrong because it doesn't include ABC, but the accounts are one-to-one with our system. So if we have, right, like the Salesforce MVPs in one and the Salesforce community group leaders in another, they're technically the same like domain, they're similar, and we want to report on them together or view them together, I guess.
And the reason I brought that up, just as one idea, is that if you had a report that you could click on from any account that would show a report, Steve Mo has this phenomenal video from years ago on how to report on things all the way up. So the parent.
Yeah, but I think then it's
parent.
only I think that when he did it though, it's a text. It's basically a formula field of text. So I don't know if it needs to be related. Is the only catch maybe on that. It shows it, but yeah, in a report it would do it. Could you do? I don't know if you could do it with tasks. Dynamic or the relate enhanced whatever the new related list because you can do from other objects. I don't know.
I think you can pull down. I'm not sure you can pull up. 'Cause
Oh, to show from
I have pulled like I had an opportunity with a child object and a child object under that one. And I was able to pull from opportunity down to the children objects, but I'm not sure on opportunity I could pull up from my children.
Yeah, that makes sense. Unless you're
Again,
oh
it's
yeah,
the
yeah,
same
that definitely makes sense.
Which
yeah, I was
which
hoping
record
there-
do I use?
I was hoping there could be like a easy way to use like the account ID or something from, I mean, it'd be nice if I could just like if there's a parent account, add that ID as a secondary.
I would say custom field and then yeah, a flow to populate that value on the task.
But then I still have to have some kind of visualization.
Well, then you could create a relate. Then I think then if it's related to the parent account, if it's a lookup on the task, then you could create a related list, an additional related list, unfortunately, but
Data table might be good for this. I think what I would do, because you're trying to find, remind me, we're trying on the parent account to see all the child account activities.
Yes.
So on the parent account, run a screen flow that says, all right, take the current account number, go find any account where this is in the parent account field. Once you find those, convert that to a text collection of IDs and then go get me all activities that I care about where, related to ID in your collection of stuff. And then display all those in a data table and make that a component on your screen.
And there's no way, I don't think, on a record to identify that it is a parent that I could make conditional visibility.
You could, because you can have a formula that keeps looking upward to see if it's the top. You can basically say, do I have a parent? False. Or true. And then you say,
that's a good
I'm
use.
false. Right. And you bury that under the covers to say, if
I have a lot of accounts that aren't connected to anything, then they wouldn't have a parent.
Right. So then
that like, how can you know that? There's no like is parent.
No, but if you don't have if the parent account field on account is not populated, it's your top parent.
Yeah.
If parent account is populated, there's something above it.
Yeah.
We did something similar about 2 years ago with Lightning Web Components on cases to show kind of that case hierarchy and some of the child items underneath it. So if we can do it on case hierarchy, you could probably do something on account hierarchy as well. But you said you don't have an access to a developer at all?
No, I mean,
right, you probably could do something with Flow then.
Matt put a link in the
Michelle, what
chat
you
to an
mentioned,
app
like-
exchange tool.
Yeah. Michelle, what you mentioned with the flow, like, I guess I'm just thinking about, if I hide it under a tab, like, how do I make sure that it's performant? Or that it doesn't run like all the dang time?
I mean, that's where you go and check, because if this is the parent account, you want it. If it's not, then you don't. So I guess the only question is, do you have anybody that would be a middle child? So somebody
I don't know that I have anybody
child
that's a
and
middle child.
parent?
I just probably have accounts that don't have a parent, but also aren't a child. Right, then they're not in any hierarchy at all. So technically their parent is blank, but they're also not the parent of anybody else.
I mean, effectively,
Well,
they
if
are
it's-
the parent
Got
of nothing, right?
Right.
Yep.
So then, yeah, I guess then it wouldn't. But if it's okay, I think that's a good, the fact that like no one's like, oh, if you try and do a flow with that, it's gonna blow up your whole thing.
If I could
The-
add something
showing
that
the-
we had to deal with. So we had a similar situation, and what you start to have a challenge with if you. So you take an activity, our first choice was to like, well, if it's not the parent, replicate the activity to the parent. So now you've got two activities, but they're not in sync, and that's a problem. But if you make them the same activity, then sometimes you've got contacts showing multiple versions of the same activity, which is also noisy. And we ended up having to build a custom object that was a joiner object, so you could multi-relate an activity to multiple parents that weren't what's. That's a nightmare, but that was really the only way to multi-relate it and not replicate it.
Yeah.
Andrew's got his hand up, Stu's shaking his head, and I cut somebody off, so I don't know who to go to first.
No, I don't agree. Andrew wouldn't come and fight with me, but now he's got his hands up because he wants to help Christy.
Well, he posted some things in the chat, so
I
maybe
ran out of the gym just so
Oh.
that I could respond to this, and also to tell Steve that I'll meet him at the flagpole. But do you have EAC in the org? If so, that's going to throw a wrench into every single thing we've talked about. If you want Einstein activity capture emails,
Of course I don't. I'm at Cirrus Insight. Who needs EAC? Get out of here.
I mean, just throwing it out there.
I'm just joking, but yes, that's a good point. No, it's actual synced activity records. I like this link though. I will look at this Salesforce Lab thing.
I think is the other issue going to be, for at least for your audience, if timeline shows the direct relationships and a list view shows the indirect relationships, does that cause you more harm than good?
Not necessarily, because in this case, I feel like I would make a parent account that doesn't have activity of its own, like for the purpose of this thing. So that might actually be another way to like control that this thing only shows on like a umbrella account.
All right.
one other quick consideration. Obviously, business users probably asked for this, but have they considered that they're going to have a giant list that's like could be unusable because of how many activities will show in this like combined list to where it's unuseful? Because we have that problem with just not even rolling stuff up, where like sales gets mad because they see other stuff that's not theirs.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's gonna have to, I mean, you can't have it both ways. So you either get it all or you get it separate. I think the challenge is gonna be that there's like certain departments and you have a user over here, but maybe you talk to both departments. But I can't, it's not like there's 50, right? So hopefully it should be fine. I think the idea of a flow on like an umbrella account to show joint activity, and that basically like that's it, makes sense.
Yeah.
So yay, thank you for thinking it through with me.
Will in the future Data Cloud make this a little bit easier, because then we'll be able to make data graph views and link this data together and then present it?
Sure, yeah,
And
sure, we can live in a future,
Sure.
yeah.
Stuart, you're a dreamer and a fighter now, huh?
I'm just as I see more information about these graph views and the data graph and how they're linking up data in different ways and then presenting it to the CRM. It makes me wonder if, because they said they could do things like summarizations and calculations and the things that we're having problems with Dolores with, that can all be happening on the data cloud side as it gathers and matches data. So I'm just wondering if some of these things will be solved in the future.
So where would you send the data back to in that instance, Stu? I just took a data cloud class yesterday, so I'm definitely trying to learn more about it.
Yeah, I need to learn more about it too.
The boot camp was great, by the way. If you're thinking about a class 2024, they converted the partner class to a full Trailer Academy class, and Andrew and I both sat through it, and it was really great. So highly recommend it.
I think they said you can, in that class, I think they had mentioned that you can write back, or maybe it's coming soon. You can just write stuff back to like fields on like records in CRM too. Like write data cloud just back to the actual like CRM record contact stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, we have 5 minutes, some good conversations. Anything else from the group today that we want to try to squeeze in 5 minutes? How about in the last 5 minutes, anyone who was at TDX, what was the one thing that you thought was most important that you brought back?
So since no one's saying, I did not go, but the one thing that I heard that was amazing was bring your own models on the LLM side. That someone saw a demonstration of a mobile app that had its own LLM model inside of the app. And at first I thought, well, that's kind of silly. But then I thought, no, actually, that's marvelous, because then it restricts the LLM just to scope, focus on whatever that app needs. If it's an underwriting app, or if it's a wealth management app, what does it need to know in order to service those customers? And just the whole being able to take in these models and put in different models here and there, that just seemed fascinating to me, and good on you, Salesforce, for doing that.
For me, I was at TDX, and I've been meaning to check out the new code builder, but never got around to it. But finally at TDX, I got my hands on it, learned a lot about that, and got to try out the Einstein for Developer. So very cool, both of those. Even if you're not a developer, code builder is something that I think admins will find a lot of benefit out of using, and it'll save them a lot of time. So highly recommend it. Check it out. It should be accessible from your production org to get started.
Yeah,
There's one of the Salesforce Plus sessions is on Code Builder for admins too.
Nice.
So, and my stuff to bring back again is that all the stuff that Cheryl and team are coming up with for user management. There's a lot of good stuff to make our lives suck less. What else? There's session, I don't remember all the details, but they're improving the way that Lightning, the idea to make Lightning experience lightning fast, that has like some insane number of points. They're working on that. There's a bunch of system-like stuff that was a little over my head to understand, but the short of it all is they are improving and making that better. And they recommend using dynamic forms, and then hiding components until you need them, because then it'll save on page load time.
Oh, go ahead. Go.
I was going to say, I wasn't at TDX, but I did have a question, and I tried to catch you before you asked the TDX question. But
go ahead, Allison. Go ahead.
So we have development teams throughout the country, and the problem we're finding, and I know I don't have much time, but we're finding is we have turnover. So we have accounts that are assigned to Jane Doe. Jane Doe leaves, and then we're tasked with changing all of her accounts, contacts, and opportunities to the new person. Does anybody have any experience with kind of just bucketing them into, like, if Jane Doe works in Sacramento, making a Sacramento team? Or any suggestions would be helpful.
So, like, the actual mass transfer tool is not doing it for you?
Yeah, it's not, because sometimes we don't have a person that's taking over. So, we kind of just don't know what to do. So we put it to the development director, which isn't always the best thing to do, because then they have an inflated, portfolio. So
So
we're
you're
just
not
trying to,
leaving them with the old person, but you don't actually have a new person to transfer them to. So it's not
Correct.
just changing it from old person to new person. It's getting it out of old person and putting it in a holding cell, basically.
yes, basically. And I love the cat, by the way.
He knows when I'm on video calls and has to make himself obnoxious.
Yes, so it's both. It's both issues of the mass transfer, and then if we don't have a new person, what should we do with them in the interim? Because we don't want to leave them as the old person, but we don't have a new person. So
So it's accounts, contacts, and
opportunities. Yeah, I
Can
work
we-
for a nonprofit. So
Can we own all of those?
No,
I-
opportunities I don't think can be owned by Q's yet. I think it's coming, but I don't think it's yet.
Well, that's stupid.
You're not wrong.
Definitely can't be.
You know,
You have, I
I
mean,
got
when we've
thoughts
had
on
to,
that.
We did a thing where we would, when someone would transfer and not have immediate replacement, we had a hidden field linked to user that showed who used to own it. Then we could assign them all to that holding queue, but we could easily then pluck out all of those and reassign them. Because that's your biggest challenge, right? You give them all to Stu, and then 2 weeks later when the replacement comes in, how do you know which ones Stu's supposed to keep and not? So
Yeah.
we had this like multiple layers of categorization, so we could pluck them back out and reassign them. And then there's a massive workflow, not a workflow rule, but a workflow to ensure that work is getting done, because that's the other piece, right? If nobody follows up or forgets to do it or doesn't do it, then you've got clean up. So we've got some bureaucracy there that supports that process.
Okay. Well, it's to be continued.
Yeah, Daniel, doesn't that cost you money for no reason to have a user record that's active but not active?
Mm-hmm.
It does. It's not the best solution, but that's what that's what we use.
Okay.
Okay.
Also,
My client leaves them in, somehow they have it turned on, they just leave them on the inactive person.
yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just trying to make sure that donors and, all of our people don't get ignored or forgotten about. So
Yeah, you should be able to assign them to somebody that's inactive, like Christy said there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might want to also check out the territory management tool from Salesforce.
yeah, that's one of our next steps. I think we're going to start looking into territories, but I figured, I'm on the MVP call. I might as well check with the experts.
It's really useful as well to have some sort of default admin dashboard that shows like inactive users owned accounts or accounts that have been like kind of queued. So you could always have that kind of front and center to say, hey, we have 10,000 accounts that haven't been like cleaned up. We need to get on that. So
That's a good idea. Thank you.
and put it on your manager's dashboard so that they know that work needs to get done.
Actually, they'll probably wind up on my dashboard because
Oh,
I'm
I'm
the
sorry.
data integrity manager, but that's okay. I don't mind. I like having projects. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's input.
As do I. So we're at time. Thank you everyone who joined. It's great to see all of you. Thank you all of the new faces for helping out. Flying solo can be a little bit scary, especially when you've got the support of Joy and Dale behind you. So it was awesome to have you on. Appreciate your feedback. Looking forward to seeing you at the first Friday of April. And until then, stay awesome, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.